Hey everybody, Eclipsed Wolf here. I am back with another vlog. Hopefully this one you guys will enjoy as well. I'm going to be talking about the favorite books that I've enjoyed reading over my several years of being alive and being able to read. I don't know about you guys, but I love being able to read a book and it just taking you into a different dimension, a different world, just picturing like yourself in that story, actually the person living what's going on. I personally haven't been to the library, I think, in over a year, which is bad on my part because, like I said, I love reading. I get into funks and stuff where I just don't feel like doing anything. Sometimes I get into creative moods and just want to do like everything, and then I get frustrated because I have all these ideas and I just can't do them all at once. But that's besides the point. Let's go ahead and get right in with book number one that I enjoy. This first book is called Dreaming in Libro. I don't remember when I read it, but I remember reading it after high school or when I was in high school. I went to the library one day and I was just looking around. I think it was like the nonfiction, like pet area type books in the adult section. Not the adult section, yeah. Anyways, not the young adult section, but, the adult section where it's, better literature, longer chapters, more words, that kind of thing. And this book really just kind of like popped out at me, and I was like, wow, this book looks really cool. I checked it out. I read it. I think I read it in a day. It was a really good book. It's about a woman who meets this dog out at a park, and she essentially takes care of him, adopts him eventually, and it just chronicles their adventures together and everything. And I actually just found out that there was a book before it, which I might actually have to go read that when I'm done here. And yes, this is my pillow back here. But there was something about this book that I absolutely loved. And all of these books I do recommend you guys read if you would like to. You don't have to, of course, you have your own free will and everything. But it definitely is one of my favorite books. Now, this next book, I would literally classify this as my most favorite book ever. It's called Promise of the Wolves. I read this also when I was in high school, and this book literally transported me. Like, I literally thought I was the main character. I was so caught up in this book. It was amazing. They have two more books in the series, which I have not read yet, which is, well, at the beginning of the video I mentioned it was like a year ago that I went to the library. I went there for my birthday because I wanted to read the other two books. I got halfway through the first book and then got busy with work because I had just gotten a new job and everything, and I didn't get a chance to finish catching up through the first book because it had been a while since I read it, and I didn't get a chance to read the other two books, so I might actually go to the library either later today or maybe like tomorrow after work or something. But anyways, what this book is about is it's set 14,000 years ago in southern Europe, and it's about this wolf pup who has mixed bloodlines. And because of that, her mom gets kicked out of the pack, shunned, exiled, whichever word you would like to use for it. And so she is left on her own trying to prove to the rest of the pack that she's worth their time. She's not worthless. She, has a purpose to be with them. And it basically, like, the whole story is what the promise of the wolves was and how what their interactions are with humans. And it has like a whole just bunch of information in it, and it's awesome. The second book is called Secrets of the Wolves, and then the third book is called Spirit of the Wolves. But yeah, I love that book, and I really need to read the next two books just to satisfy my hunger of what else happens. But I hope you guys read that book at some point too. Alright, so the third book on this list is Marley Me, which I'm pretty sure a majority of you people have actually heard of because it was a very successful, popular movie. I think it was 2008 when it said that it came out. But I actually read this book before I saw the movie, I think. I had got the book from the library, I started reading it, and I got so involved with it and it was a really thick book. It was maybe yay big. I don't know. It was pretty thick. And I was honestly surprised. I read it in less than a day. It was the fastest I think I've ever read a book, and I absolutely enjoyed it. For those of you who don't know who Marley and Me is, like what the story is about, whether it's the book or the actual movie, it's about this family who adopts a puppy, and the puppy grows up into a golden retriever, obviously, because golden retriever puppy. And they find out that this dog is extremely, like, misbehaving and just kind of destructive and all over the place and everything. But they still, they still love the dog. I mean, how can you not love your dog? And it talks about, like their adventures with the dog, Marley, and ultimately about his death and how they coped with it and everything. And it was a really good book. I loved the way it was written, and the movie was really good as well. So if you guys haven't seen the movie or read the book, I suggest you check those out as well. Okay, before you say anything, before I say anything, make fun of me all you want, but I actually really did enjoy the Twilight books. The movies, however, yeah, they're kind of a pile of garbage. But the books themselves, the way that Stephanie Myers writes, is actually really good. Like, you can actually, like, picture what these people look like. You can picture, how things are going on. You can picture every scene in your head. So when I read the books and then watched the movies, like, the way I had, like, envisioned what people looked like, it just kind of was, like, a bad taste in my mouth. It didn't really sit well with me. I mean, yeah, the movies, they were okay to watch if you're just by yourself and have nothing better to do with your day. I'm not saying that, the books are bad. I loved the books. I loved reading them. One of my friends gave me the unofficial, official, like, illustrated guide or something. I don't remember what it was called. But it, like, had, like, a bunch of, like, illustrations and, like, what people were supposed to wear, like, what each character, like, actually was supposed to look like, and all this other stuff that actually wasn't based on what went on in the movies. So I actually really enjoyed looking at that book. I still have it. It's on my bookshelf. But if you haven't read the Twilight books, but you've seen the movies, I'm sorry. Go read the books. The books are actually pretty decent. I'm not going to explain what the books are about because I'm pretty sure 99% of the internet population has seen the movies or at least has a general idea of what the movies and books are about. Alright, this fifth book I actually came across when I was in elementary school, and I have loved it ever since. We were tasked with going and getting a famous poem and reciting it for the class. I came across this book, and I absolutely loved every single poem that was in there. I did the poem, it was called like 1 inch or like inch by inch or something similar to that. I mean, I'd have to go look at my book. I have it on my bookshelf as well as the last one. I absolutely love the way that Shel Silverstein writes and the way his poems are. Like, I've looked at his other books as well. I don't own any of those ones, but I have read them. And it's just, he has such a way with words, and for the longest time, I actually thought Shel Silverstein was a girl until I actually, like, looked at the back of the book. So, yeah, I was kind of in for a surprise with that one, but I love the way he writes. I love how much meaning there is in his poems. But also, he has, like, just poems that are just like, what? Why? But that's just creative minds for you. A lot of times you don't understand, but you can still appreciate what they have created. But if you have never read any of Shel Silverstein's poetry books or anything, I definitely suggest you go check them out. They are very, very intriguing, both intellectually and just humorously. So, definitely one of my favorites. This next book also has a movie adaptation of it. And I have not yet seen the movie, but I absolutely loved reading the book. I read it also when I was in high school. I think it was one of my last 2 years of high school, so senior or junior? It's freshman, sophomore, junior, right? Anyways, I read it one of my last 2 years of high school, and I loved it. It was a really intriguing book. What it's about is a high school kid, as well as several other high school kids, because it takes place at a high school. But it's of the perspective of one young man. His name is, I think it was Jake Taylor, and about his his childhood friend who came to school one day with a gun because of bullying and just being ignored for most of his life and everything else. And I'm not going to spoil it, but there was a shooting. And after this, the main character really took it to heart and he blamed himself for everything that happened. And so the rest of the book after this event talks about how he's trying to figure out how to be a better person, how do you not treat people the way that had been treating his friend at the time. And which kind of like a similar thing to 13 Reasons Why, if you guys haven't seen the show. I still need to read the book for that, but it's not on this list because I haven't read it. But it's just a thing, it doesn't matter where you are at in life, whether you're elementary school, middle school, high school, college, outside of college, in the adult workplace and everything. Just the main moral of these kinds of stories is do not be rude. Be as nice as you can to people, treat people with respect, treat people the way you'd like to be treated. And I recommend anyone to read this book. It was a really good book. I'd love to see the movie at some point, so I recommend seeing that movie as well, even though I haven't seen it yet. Now, this next book might actually sound kind of familiar to some of you because it was actually turned into a TV show at one point. It is called Flash Forward, and I read the book after I watched the show, and the show was amazing. I loved it. And the way they ended it absolutely freaking irritates me because they left it on a cliffhanger. I hate when they leave shows on cliffhangers like that. It's freaking irritating. Okay, I don't know if you guys have ever watched shows like that where it's canceled, but the way they end it's not satisfying. But anyways, what this book is about is I think blah 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 blah, if I can speak English here today. It's about scientists or some kind of similar thing like that in, I think it was Switzerland. And they're doing these experiments and stuff, and somehow it causes the entire human population to lose consciousness for, I think it said, about 2 minutes. And sorry, my pen's falling. In the show, I think it was 2 minutes and 17 seconds. So they made it very specific in the show. And during this time, they all have visions and dreams and just kind of glimpses of what's happening in their lives in the future. In the book, the glimpses are 21 years and 6 months from the current day that this happened. And in the book, it was only 6 months. And it's just really interesting. And in the show, which I think I have the show listed in my favorite shows video that I will be recording later on. But if I remember right, in the show, they mentioned that the visions that they saw, if no one saw anything, it meant that they weren't alive when the time period was happening. So it was kind of like a crazy, why didn't I see anything? Why is everyone else seeing everything, but why didn't I? And so, there's all these things that lead up to it, and, all these really crazy, insane things. But if you are definitely into, quote-unquote sci-fi or just kind of, weird things like that, I definitely suggest reading that book. And I don't know where you can find the show to watch it, but if you can find it and can watch it, I highly suggest it. It was amazing. This last book is called The Killer Angels, which it's another book that I had to read in high school, and for the longest time I was like, I really don't want to read this book. This book looks dumb. As soon as I started reading it and getting into it, I absolutely loved it. And I think the main reason why I enjoyed it is because I do have a lot of family history that goes back to the Civil War, which this book is and it's a historical, like, biography type book about the Civil War. So I think that's like the main reason why I actually really enjoyed it and, you know, got so grossed in with it. Like, it was another book where you're reading and all of a sudden you can picture being in the same scenarios. You can picture yourself being there with Robert E. Lee and everybody else that, you know, was fighting in the Civil War. It was a very interesting perspective on the Civil War that really hadn't, like, you don't normally, like, get to see or, like, read about. And another thing with this book, which I figured out one of the last times I looked it up, because I was, you know, trying to tell people about a really cool book that I had read in high school, and they actually had made a movie about it. I think it was 1993, and it's called Gettysburg, which I need to look to see if I can find that, because I would like to see that movie. I do suggest any of you history buffs or just reading buffs to read this book. It was really well written, and I absolutely enjoyed it. Alright, well, that's all I have for this video, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys can check out some of these books from your local library if you can. You might actually be able to find them like on Audible or like Google Books or any of those like sites where you can find the ebooks for them. I know I definitely saw that Promise of the Wolves was on Audible, I think. But definitely check some of these out. Go to your local library, like I said, because some of these are definitely worth the read. But for right now, this is the end of this vlog, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!